So we're here at Autotech in Canberra for the next instalment of our build on POR440. And as you can see from the engine bay that we've made quite a bit of progress. In fact, for a lot of this, we're in the final stages of fit up, and a lot of this stuff won't get pulled apart. So at the moment we've got the engine in the car that's going to be in there, the transmission, the 80mm ball jointed turbo is bolted up to the custom made log headers. We've got the crossover pipe, radiator, intercooler, everything in place. At this point, we've really just got to finish basic plumbing in the engine bay. At the moment we're running fuel lines. A lot of these are just dummy lines that we use just to see how they're going to fit around the alternator and the rocker cover. It's all looking really good, very exciting. You know, they say that the last 10% of the car takes 90% of the time, and I have to admit it does. So from here, once we leave Autotech, the car's going to go to Custom Auto Electrical in Wagga. We're going to have the Haltech loom and all the body wiring done on the car. Obviously the wiring on this car's 40 odd years old. It's going to need better headlights, it's going to need relays, it's going to need basically a complete rewire of the car. So engine bay wise, we're on the tail end. It's all looking good. One of the most important parts of any street machine is the fuel delivery system. And in this case here, it's been very time consuming, but we really want to get away from cable tying everything under the car. Cable ties are plastic, they're susceptible to heat. Car bottoms out on the trailer or over a hump rips the fuel lines out. When you're running fuel lines through steel panels, there's a couple of ways of doing it. You can run a bulkhead fitting, which is great for the engine bay. When you need to come down here and run it along the body rails, often you need to drill through single and multi-layer pieces of steel, and that's where you can run into trouble with the fuel lines chafing. In this case here, we've gone through a single layer steel. All we've done, big hole saw, and then got a bit of fuel hose, cut it down the middle and lined it. So we've got a grommet there. The fuel lines won't rub. They've been mounted securely up the top with a P-clamp, so they've been bolted into place and held together with an aluminium clamp. In this case here, we've had to go through the cross member, as it's probably more desirable to go through a cross member than it is to run it down a rail where the car can bottom out and pinch the line. So what we've done, hold sawed straight through the chassis, got a piece of steel sleeve, put the steel sleeve on the inside, welded it the whole way around. That way the cross member still retains its structural integrity, the lines don't move, and if they do, they're rubbing on a flat surface. Because the front of the car is already quite busy with a big ass intercooler and a radiator, there's a lot going on up there. We've got two exhaust manifolds generating a lot of heat, we've got a crossover pipe from the turbo, a big ass turbo, but we still need to keep the transmission cooled. A great option is to put the transmission cooler down the back of the car. Now obviously under the car you don't get the same amount of airflow, so what we do is whack a fan on it. On the return line from the transmission we put a temperature switch that will be hooked into the Haltech computer. When the computer senses that the transmission is hot, it simply turns the fan on and off. We reduce the fire hazards, we get a nice cold transmission. It's a big win. Whether you're building a street car or a race car, it's really important that your pinion angle is set in the correct location. Too much or too little can mean the car will wheel spin, unload the tyres or axle tramp. What we're using here are the Gazzard Brothers mono leaf springs. They're made in Queensland. Those boys have had tremendous success with leaf spring cars getting them to 60 foot. So we're using the Gazzard Brothers mono leaf and we're using their traction bars. What has been a very time consuming process has been establishing the pinion angle, and the way that's done is when the tail shaft is in place you set that at 0 and then you give the car 4 to 6 degrees of down pinion angle, weld your diff into place. The Gazzard Brothers use a different system to most cars. Most cars would use a traditional, if it's got a leaf spring, a U-bolt. They make their own plates that sit under the diff. Once you've got your pinion angle right, you simply weld it into place. Again at the rear, instead of a traditional style spring hanger, which would have a rubber bush at the top, rubber bush at the bottom, and a pair of hangers that rock, we've got these fantastic little mechanisms here. They've got a ball bearing race on either side, which allows the spring to move backwards and forwards when you want to load and unload the tyres. Really great system, works excellent.